Okay, we will continue. So Leo was a very powerful, very influential man. However, his papacy was not without trouble. Some serious troubles he had to face. One of the troubles he has to face was the division of the East and the West. It was when Leo IX was Pope that West and East formally separated. Why it was separated? There were many reasons. His conflict with Michael Cerularius, the Patriarch of Constantinople, he was of Constantinople, and very serious differences came. In 1054, Leo sent a letter to Constantinople by the hand of a representative. He laid the letter on the altar of the Church of Saint Sophia. In that letter, Leo IX excommunicated Cerularius, the Patriarch of Constantinople. The Patriarch in return excommunicated the Pope. So this led to the division of the Church into East and West, or the Greek Church and the Latin Church. So Leo IX was very powerful, but he also had the notoriety of presiding upon the division of the church.
That means this is a further division other than the Orthodox and...
The division took only now. They were, it's like the vehicles were started but not moving. But now the two vehicles are going in opposite directions. They were all started and you just warming it up and you were accelerating in between and give the impression that now it's going to take off, but now it has taken off.
So it took 100 or more than...
Yeah, it took many years, Yes, it started, the problem started, in 800s and came all the way to 1054. It was a very sad day. The Eastern churches taken the name Orthodox. They said we are Orthodox Church. Western Church said we are Roman Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church was divided into two: the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox Church.
Any specific reason for this excommunication by...
Yes, there were many reasons. As I said, it was this. The volcano has to erupt because it has been smoldering and smoking for a long time. As I said actually there were more specific things, there were many specific things, and Leo wanted one of his men to be made a bishop here, and the Patriarch refused that, and so he was very unhappy about it, and then the doctrinal problems, so all these things added up. Anyway, Leo died shortly, Leo died. And Henry III appointed another German as Pope, Victor II. In 1000, he was the Pope only for 2 years, 1055 to 57. In 1056, Henry died. Victor was a supporter of Cluny and also very loyal to Henry III. When Henry III died, his son was only 6-year-old. They made him the emperor. However, his mother was the regency, the resident, ruler until the child become, little older. So her name was Agnes, and she was a weak lady, she was not a very strong lady. And all these turmoils for a woman to be, the leader, it will be very difficult. Now the Cluny reformers had difficulty to accept Empress Agnes as the ruler, until the boy mature. So that's a problem. Not only because she was a woman, that was of course one. The other reason is she was not sympathetic about this Cluny movement and all that, Of course, her husband was very sympathetic and all, but she was not that much. Actually, the Cluny monasteries did not like the emperor controlling the Pope and the church. They did not say anything, but it was behind them. They wanted to liberate the church totally from the control of the emperor, because that was one of the things that the Clooney's wanted to do. That was one of them. The church should be liberated from the clutches of the rulers. And so she knew it. Now she is a woman. Therefore, she knew that the resistance will be there. So they, they hardly tolerated it. Under Henry III, they tolerated because Henry III was very loyal to the Clooney movement. And because he was a, king who was sympathetic to their movement, therefore even though he controls the Pope and all that, they just said that it's okay. But now that Henry is gone, Henry's son has come, Henry IV, but the mother is ruling, so they were not very happy at all. Also, they decided that even when Henry IV matures, he should not be given the control of the church, they decided. This they will oppose. So the Reform Party, had control of the church. They appointed one Stephen X as Pope. He was chosen without any influence of the imperial party. Even the mother regent Agnes was not consulted. It infuriated her. You are making now a person an emperor. Until now it's a king who will make the emperor. You are not even going to consult me, at least for formality's sake. So she was very, very aggravated. And Stephen X was a strong pope. He declared that appointment to papacy, in order to be valid, must be made by the church and not the king. So he made a rule that whomsoever the king appoints has no validity. If anybody to be a pope, he must be appointed by the church and not by the state. He expressed very firmly his disapproval of lay investiture. You know what lay investiture means? The lay king, the king will be the one who will be giving the official clothes and everything of the Pope and the bishop and all that. That was the right, He will lay the crown, he will give the other official clothes and all. So it was a right they had. The kings enjoyed it. They call it the lay investiture. Yeah? investiture. And the act of a layman king, basically making a bishop. Making a bishop means, what we call the ordination part of it. And or, making pope, giving him the symbols of the office. The emperor, being very young, though did not like his power to appoint, Pope was taken away, did not want an encounter at this time because he is very young. He has grown some, but not 6 years anymore. But so he advised his mother, go ahead and approve what they have done. Let's avoid an encounter, that time there for encounter, So the Pope got the approval of the king, But he died shortly afterwards. Under the death of Stephen X, the Roman nobles wanted to regain their power of appointing papacy. Just 1 week after the death of the Pope, the nobles, influenced another person called Hildebrand, 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 to appoint next Pope, who was their man. So they appointed Benedict X as Pope. The Reformed cardinals had to leave Rome immediately for life and seek asylum elsewhere. The Reformed cardinals were able to seek the help of German nobles and appointed one man, Hildebrand as Pope. He changed his name to Gregory VII. There is a lot of history in between how this man came, But Gregory VII was a very powerful Pope. Very powerful Pope. The church is still trying to free itself. Hildebrand was very successful in diplomacy. He managed to get the support of many dukes. Before he ever became Pope, he manipulated many things. First of all, Hildebrand influenced the cardinals and made a new system of electing the Pope. The cardinals, upon the death of a Pope, has to meet together and nominate a person as the next Pope. The Pope and the people and the priest will elect. They have to vote and they will elect the Pope. So this new method was, decreed in 1059 at a synod. That way the control of the papacy was completely taken away from the hand of the aristocracy. Very wisely he has done it. An election was made according to the new method. Hildebrand defeated, another person Honorius II, who was contended to the office, and actually he is called a Black Pope, by them. And the support to the Cluny party was for, the Hildebrand, and so he became the Pope in 1073. His election and appointment were very unusual. Actually he went for a funeral, this man, and he was conducting the funeral service. Then a large number of mob came and took him all the way to the St. Peter's, there. And there the people declared he is the Pope. So then the church had to make him Pope because the people were all, hail Pope, that sort of. So what happened later, all the cardinals got together and nominated him as the Pope because there was no other way. Anyway, the royal family could not do that. But a big conflict began between Henry IV and the emperor and Hildebrand, the Pope of Gregory VII. Hildebrand loved the Augustine city of God. The idea of the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, he believed that, this new Pope believed that the church is the divine agency to establish that kingdom. He also believed that Pope is the vicar of the church on earth, and therefore the Pope will establish that kingdom. The Pope is answerable only to God and to no one else. So he completely liberated himself from the aristocracy, The aristocracy became very weak. But King Henry IV did not buy those ideas. He believed in the idea of the lay investiture, that is, the king has the right officially to appoint the bishop and the pope, so an encounter was inevitable. For both popes and emperors, the question of the right of investiture became a key issue. The struggle between papacy and the emperor has been brewing for a while now, and it was precisely over this issue of the investiture. So Pope Gregory VII and Henry IV, the emperor, came face to face in a conflict. They thought they wanted to avoid the conflict, but actually they were not avoiding the conflict. They were only giving, pouring more petrol into the fire, and so they came, face to face to a conflict. The first 2 years of Gregory VII, and the first 2 years of Gregory VII rule, the emperor Henry IV maintained peaceful friendship. It was one of the tactics. He just wanted to be friendly with the emperor, the pope. So the emperor was friendly with the pope. This was because a rebellion of nobles gave the emperor great difficulty and made his position as the king of the Germans very weak. The German princes and all these barbarians there, they were going to fight against the king. And if the king does not reconcile somehow with the emperor, with the pope, the emperor knew that his position will be in danger. So he pretended that he was very, friendly with the pope. The pope, emboldened by Henry's weak situation in 1075, forbade investiture by laymen. However, later in that year, Henry defeated all his opponents and established his power as emperor. So once he consolidated his position, situation was changed. Gregory the Pope now faces Henry IV, a powerful emperor. Directly against the violation of the decree against the investiture, the emperor made 3 bishops. Without consulting the Pope, he appointed 3 people as emperors, as bishops. This is just to show that I have the power, And now what would happen? What would the Pope do? Would he overlook the violation of the decree? In 1075, the Pope wrote a letter to the emperor in which he poured out his fury. This letter dictated final terms and opened the hostilities between the Pope and the emperor. In the letter, Pope described himself as servant of God and told him to obey the Pope. He listed the sins of the emperor and told him that he deserved excommunication by the successor of Apostle Peter, and said unless he repented, he would be excommunicated and he would perish, basically perish in hell. Book of Pope has it. But the emperor was young and very powerful. He was just celebrating his victory over the Germans. The emperor called a council of bishops. They met in Worms on 24th of January 1076. And the council declared that it no longer recognized Gregory as a pope. This decision of the council was communicated to the Pope by a letter written by the council and signed by all the bishops. So now here is the thing, Pope, yes, but bishops don't support. The bishops support Henry. The letter began, by Henry as, he said, Henry, king not by usurpation, because the Pope did some manipulation to get it, not by usurpation, but by divine ordination, to Heidelberg, the present Pope but a false monk. Then the thrust of the letter was, Heidelbrand obtained papacy by fraud. The letter therefore said, by the decision of the Bishops' Council and by his own decision, the Pope is removed from the office. Man, you can just see, the situation is really bad, really bad. The emperor sent a letter to all the people in Rome to banish the Pope. And the Pope sent a letter to Germany to elect someone else as their king, unless Henry, repents. The emperor's letter was completely ignored by the people of Rome. The people of Rome said, no, he is our Pope. So Pope's appeal, on the other hand, was met with a favorable response by the Germans. The feudal lords who were recently defeated by Henry, they felt very unhappy about it. So they found an opportunity to revenge the king, because the Pope is on their side. So besides the administration of, the Henry was he ruled with an iron rod. That's the way he ruled. So in October 1076, the German nobles met in a meeting. Many wanted to depose Henry immediately, and all wanted to humiliate him. They finally decided that another meeting would be called under the presidency of the Pope on 2nd February of the next year, and would give Henry a chance to repent. If within 1 year the Pope won't free Henry from the charges, then he would lose the throne. Meanwhile, he has to live in another city under some guards. So he has to leave his throne and he has to go, somewhere else. Henry was desperate. He felt his crown was slipping. He was willing to agree to save the crown for anything. So he wrote to the Pope, agreeing to the charges and willing to do penance. So the emperor, he sets out to Italy, humbling himself before the people of Italy and Germany. At the same time, in his mind, he was scheming how to throw the Pope out, even though he was going there, because he wanted to regain his position. Yeah, this is all dirty games, I mean, this is, Pope is playing dirty game and Emperor is playing. It was absolutely necessary for Henry to get absolution, that is forgiveness by the Pope, and to be freed from excommunication. So with his wife, a little son and some faithful men, he set out for Italy. It was in dead winter. He has to cross the Alps, which was covered with snow and ice. In that extreme climate, he has to climb, he has to go to where Pope was living. At the same time, Pope started for a meeting at Augsburg, Germany. So someone gave the rumor to the Pope that Henry is coming with an army to attack the Pope. So Pope ran and took refuge within the walls of a castle at Canossa, because he's afraid. Pope has only authority, so-called, but he doesn't have army. The king got the army. So he ran and he, took shelter. But actually the emperor was not going with anybody. That was a false rumor that they spread, So on the morning of 25th January 1077, Emperor Henry climbed the hill to the castle of Canossa, where the Pope was, and knocked on the outer gate. The gate was opened to him, and he was led through the first gate, the second gate. But the gate on the third wall remained closed. There Henry stood all day long in the courtyard before the gate, and it was snowing heavily. He had no shoes, barefoot and barehead. In the cold he stood there shivering from morning till evening. He expected that the doors will be opened and he will be asked to come, to do his penance. No. So the night came, he left. Next morning again he came early morning. He stood there 24 hours again, cold, shivering. The gate was not opened. The third day the same thing. The Pope won't open the door. It was snowing and he was shivering. All night he was made to stand there the third day. Next day morning, Henry appeared again. That day also the same thing happened. Again, the third day, Henry stood as a penitent. On the 27th day of January, in the close of the day, the gate was opened and Henry was told to enter in. The Pope and the Emperor met. The Pope was on the farther end of the room. He sat there on a chair. In all the glory of the Pope, with all his, pomp and paraphernalia, everything put on him, and he was there. And this poor king entered, Henry IV entered. He was young, he was tall, he was powerfully built, very impressive in penitent garb. He put upon him a penitent garb, black clothes, and no shoes, no head cover, no cap or anything, He was there. So in tears the emperor prostrated himself to the ground. He kissed the Pope's feet and he implored for forgiveness. Gregory granted Henry absolution and lifted the ban of excommunication. So what really happened there? That was the whole question, What really happened? Why for 3 days the Pope did not give an appointment to Henry? Historians have a big debate on this one. What was the real reason? Was it because the Pope wanted to humiliate, Henry? Let him suffer? Was that the reason? Or there was another reason? Why did Pope keep the emperor standing for 3 days barefoot in the snow? Was it to humiliate him to the utmost limit? The expression "go to Canossa," that's an expression now in the English language. Go to Canossa, that means, you go all the way. It's a proverb, you're submitting to the utmost humiliation. Somebody say, hey, go to Canossa, that sort of. So actually what happened was, the Pope, Gregory the Pope, had an agreement with the princess in Germany who supported him, that Henry will be humiliated and hand over to them, because they wanted to revenge him. They will. That was the idea that the Pope Gregory will not really forgive this man. Instead, he will be deposed, and then he will be handed over to the German princes, and they will probably dethrone him, behead him, whatever they wanted to. So that was a commitment the Pope had with those men. Now, he never expected that Henry will come repenting. He expected Henry will be coming to fight. In that case, all the German princes will come to fight, and that he will be destroyed. Unexpectedly, what happened, that this man came, humbling and humiliating himself, and stand there. Now, according to the law of Christ, the Bible, and also according to the written law of the Vatican, the office, if a man, humbles and do penitence, he must be forgiven. So Pope did not know what to do. It took 3 days for him to decide what to do. This was actually the reason. Pope was in great turmoil. If he won't forgive him, that will be a great charge against him. He has violated the written strict rule of the church. A penitent should be given absolution. And then the Bible also says that, So he is in a, and if he gives him and set him free, then he cannot go to those princes, because they are going to be against him. So Pope was in great turmoil, what to do. So it took 3 days for him to figure out what to do while this poor man was standing there. So finally, he said, I will obey the law of the Bible and the law of the Pontiff, that is, he must be given. So he came as a penitent, so he must be given. So the absolution was there, My notes are over there, but I have my my book. Very interesting. Henry was no simple man, Henry was very cunning. Now Henry got his throne back. Now the question is what he will do. That is what he has to think. So he did something, And this poor Pope died in humiliation. Yes. He died in humiliation. So, I read to you what happened. So the struggle continues. Canossa was not the end of the fierce struggle between Henry and Gregory. It was only the most spectacular act in the drama. Confusion now reigned. Germany and Italy were divided into two warring camps. Henry's opponents in Germany in 1077 elected Rudolf of Swabia to be the king. So now there were two kings, or a king and an anti-king. In 1080, Gregory again put Henry under the ban, as a decree of excommunication is called. But this time it had little or no effect. The tide turned against the Pope. Most of the bishops declared Gregory deposed. They supported Henry. And they elected another Pope known as the anti-Pope. In the same time, in the same year, in a battle between Henry and Rudolf, the emperor made by the German princes, the Rudolf was wounded and bled to death. Civil war continued to rage. Unspeakable cruelties were committed on both sides. Germany was overrun by Henry and laid waste. Now the Rudolf was dead, and those who supported the Pope, that country was completely, destroyed. The army marched into Italy, and Italy and besieged Rome and took it. Henry installed the anti-Pope